Do you go by Jim or James?
Well, I go by Jim. Most of them calls me Jim. A lot of them calls me James.
So either one?
Either one is fine.
So then where did you have to go up here? What happened? When you got in the service then, where did you go?
They inducted me in the service in Salt Lake. And I think number 3 was my lucky number through the service.
How so?
When we was in Salt Lake, they lined us up one day, and 4 they picked out of the company. I was the 3rd one. And they just left us standing and marched the rest of them off and left us there. So the other boys said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, go back to the barracks. They'll find us. So we went to the barracks. The others come marching in behind us. They had to march there, and we just took off and walked. And so the next day, they done the same thing again and just left the same 4 standing again. Mine was the 3rd name called again.
Wow.
And so we done the same thing. We went back to the barracks. Here they come again. And an hour or so later, they come back and they run us out in the street again. And us 4 was called off in the same order again. That time they didn't leave us standing. The officer says, you 4 go to your barracks and pack your bag and get out here in the street in 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
They didn't even let us stay to eat supper. And we come out in the street, he was standing there, and there was a little bus standing there. He says, you fellas get on this bus. He says, you're shipping out.
Wow.
And he took us down and put us on the train. And before he put us on the train, nobody in charge of us, nothing with that officer, and he wasn't going nowhere. He was staying there. He says, I just as well tell you now where you fellas are going, because he says you'll find out, because he says you're on your own and here's your orders. He says you go to Cheyenne on the train and then to Denver. And he says you got a 4-hour layover in Denver, and then you go to Junction City, Kansas, Fort Riley, Kansas. And he says the only thing I ask of you is don't get drunk and miss the train in Denver. 4-hour layover. And so we get into, we rode that night on the train, next day, and got in there and then spent our 4 hours and got on the train that evening, and pretty near morning when we got in Fort Riley, and unloaded us all from the train, and there was a sergeant there to get us and hauled us out to Fort Riley and let us, he was eating breakfast, and he let in and ate our breakfast, and that's when our military priest training. Well, I'll tell you something about our cooking before we got over there. When we left Camp Swift, Texas, to the day before Christmas, they loaded us on that train in the afternoon, and the next day was Thanksgiving. And we had to cook. No, it was Christmas dinner. We had to cook that Christmas dinner on that train in a boxcar. They had an old wood stove in there for us to cook on. And we had to cook for that whole company.
Oh my gosh. How many men would that be?
Well, I'd say they was probably 200 or 300. And
what did you serve? Do you remember? What was it?
We had turkey and the whole deal. And we cooked on that there, and then I think it was 3 days from the time we got on till we got off that train in Virginia, Hampton Road, Virginia. We got in there, well, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night. We'd been on that old dirty train for 3 days. Dirty, oh man, it was dirty, because there's no place for you to take a shower or anything on that. And when we got to there at the Hampton Road, everything was cold, no hot water, no nothing. So we had to build fires to get warm water. And about the time we got that all done, it was getting late. Everybody got through. 4 o'clock the next morning, here they come in, woke up the cooks and says, "You got to be up at the kitchen to help cook breakfast." Well, we didn't even know where the kitchen was at.
Yeah.
Well, we found it, went to work, cooked breakfast, and we had fried eggs and all bacon and all that stuff for hash browns for breakfast. And we started to cook breakfast, cooked that and served them. 3,600 men went through there for one meal.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot of dog faces. And we thought, generally in your kitchen cooking, you'd go to work at noon, you'd work that afternoon, then you had the night off, and you get up next morning, cook till noon, then you was off.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought that's what we'd get there. Well, we went to work that morning, we cooked breakfast, we cooked dinner, we cooked supper, and when we got through a supper, about midnight, we got out of there.
Oh no, wow.
We thought they was going to hold us over for the next go-round, but we squawked enough they was glad to get rid of us. And but 3,600 men at one meal through there.
Yeah.